X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is the weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every X-Men story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Zach. And I really hope that everyone, after 4 weeks? No, 6 weeks of doing that intro, that everyone gets that the joke there is that Adam's name starts with an A and my name starts with a Z. We all got that, right?
I think everybody's figured that out by now. I hope.
Well, do you know what I figured out, Adam?
What did you figure out?
That when this episode goes up on that date of August 6th, it's 1 day away from our 1 year anniversary as a podcast.
That is crazy. We've been doing this for an entire year, Zach. How cool is that?
I mean, it's neat. Time kind of flies.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting this to happen.
You thought we'd give up by now?
I mean, look, we have a goal that is unattainable. And I figured we'd just accept that. Yeah, to get everything. And I mean, I think it started a little bit. It took us what, like 10 episodes to find our footing.
Yeah.
But well, here's the thing. I don't think people realize those first 6 episodes we recorded within 2 weeks of each other, and it was the first time we had ever actually spoken.
Yeah. I think we got off to a pretty good start, all things considering,
Yeah.
And I'm glad everybody listening. Thanks for listening. And I hope that we've kind of found our groove as we've gone through the year. So what do we have on tap today?
Well, on tap today, Adam, we've got 3 stories all about some different universes and times. I'll be honest, we did not pick the strongest, most cohesive theme for this episode, but I think we got some fun stories. And do you know who those fun stories come to us from?
I believe we have a Patreon request. Is that right?
Yes, it is right. These stories, or at least one of them, the first one, comes to us from Patreon supporter Andrew Layton. So, Andrew, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. What did Andrew request?
Andrew requested a tale from Astonishing X-Men, but here's the trick. This ain't from the parts of Astonishing X-Men that we've covered so far.
Yes, this is not Whedon Astonishing. We're delving into Greg Pak Astonishing. Yeah,
and Greg Pak only did this one arc of Astonishing because it spun off into its own book called Extreme X-Men, which is wholly unrelated from the other one.
Mm-hmm.
This is Astonishing 144 through, 148? 147.
Is there a 1 there? I thought it was just 44.
Nah, they did not do 100 issues of Astonishing X-Men. I'm just... Yeah, it's just 44 to 47. I'm sorry.
I was just checking. I didn't know if I had that wrong.
We're just way off. After a year, you'd think we'd be good at podcasting. It turns out we're actually very bad.
It is kind of amazing how many times you mess numbers up, Zach, given your field.
Here's the thing. Okay, 2 things here. 1, I write down everything that I have to say. I have a bunch of tabs open with all the details. I don't take notes, but I make sure that I have those details up and available. 2, in engineering, what you do is you write things down and you come back to it later. You memorize nothing. I can tell you the basic laws of thermodynamics, and even then, I think I'd get a few wrong.
I hear you. You. So this is alien territory, really. As is as a segue, where Cyclops ends up in this arc.
You mean in the arms of his lover Storm?
Oh, yeah. It makes my skin crawl to hear you say that. And it absolutely happens on page. But however, it's not our beloved 616 Storm. So maybe it shouldn't make your skin crawl that much.
Well, here's the thing. This is a part of the bannered event Regenesis, which is the X-Men books coming right out of Schism. People didn't know where things were going to end up after Schism. In fact, I wasn't reading the books, but I was creeping around on articles and message boards and stuff about it, and a lot of people were concerned that Cyclops and Emma were going to split up during this event. Like they were going to be on opposite sides. This
Mhm.
cover did not do anything but stoke those fires.
Yeah, there's a bit of trolling going on here. Which, honestly, this moment of Cyclops kissing Storm, which is really just an alternate universe Storm kissing Cyclops, although he really looks like he likes it, seems to be about to grab a handful of butt um, in the one page splash. But really, the story centers around an alternate world that needs Cyclops as batteries, and is collecting all of the multiverse's Cyclopses to really save their world from blowing up.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't I don't think the plot is the strongest part of this book by a long shot. I think it's a little light. I understand the moral quandary that they're trying to present, like Cyclops, you have to do this thing and subject yourself and then die, or else all of these people are going to die. Like, I get it. I don't think it's well executed. But do you know what I do think is well executed?
What's that?
Some of the alternate universe characters that they introduce here.
Yeah, I actually felt compelled after reading this arc. The arc's what it is, but I like the alternate universe characters in this so much that I've been reading Extreme X-Men Volume 2 and really enjoying it. It sets it up kind of like as a different Exiles crew, without sort of the Exiles baggage that usually comes along with fixing a timeline or anything.
Oh, that's 100% what they are.
Yeah. So, do you want to go through the roster? Because it's pretty cool.
Well, we'll go from worst to best, or let's say least detailed to most detailed, because I think
Okay.
those are both the same.
Yeah.
I'll start. We have not discussed this list ahead of time, but I'm pretty sure we're going to come up with the exact same ranking of these four characters.
All right. Let's go. Let's see. I know who I'm thinking of in last place.
There is Shadow, who is an alternate version of Kitty Pryde, who is.
Ding, ding, ding.
She's just like Kitty Pryde, but a little bit darker.
Yeah, she looks like Maria Hill.
A little
She's
bit.
in a jumpsuit and just chilling. All right. Who's your second least?
Well, who's your second least? I want to know. I want to see if we got this list down pat.
I was going to go with the Emma Frost because she really doesn't, do much.
Yeah,
She's kind of there.
Emmeline Frost Summers, who is 100% there to make sure that Cyclops understands that in some universe, him and Emma do settle down. Though I do
Yep.
like her design. Like, she has a good Emma costume.
Sure.
Especially,
yeah, it's not bad.
Especially when you compare it to the Emma costume that 616 Emma Frost wears in a panel when they're both together. It's pretty obvious who's got the better look.
Yep. All right. So I guess the top two are probably the ones in contest here. Who's your number two here?
I would say my number two is Kurt Wagner, who is a little kid version of Kurt. Like little kid, he's like 12. He went to PS 1214 in Brooklyn. He's essentially Kurt, but Spider-Man.
Oh, I love his little Spider-Man lunchbox. It is the most adorable thing ever, and he's sort of like a child genius. You don't get that in this arc, but then it sort of comes out in Extreme.
Yes.
And then I'm guessing we're in agreement. This version of Wolverine is great.
Hold on. Are we talking about Governor General James Hallett of the Queen's Dominion of Canada and Viceroy of Her Majesty's Expedition to Sri Lanka? Or Shangri-La. Oh, I got that wrong.
You mean the same character who is his bones are coated in adamantine, what is it? God's metal?
Are you talking about the metal of the gods? Are you talking about the metal of the gods? Adamantine?
Yes, the metal of the gods. Yes.
Oh yeah. Him and his boyfriend Hercules just kind of ruling Canada and fighting side by side. It's great. He's fun.
Yeah. This also does set up the central premise of Extreme, which is the idea that there are multiverse Xaviers that need to die.
10 evil
because
Xaviers.
there is a room of Yes, and in this arc, there's a lot of floating heads of Xavier's, one of which becomes a character in Extreme X-Men. So I feel like this works better as sort of like the first arc of that
Hmm.
storyline, even though they add Dazzler to that arc, that book, which I think is really cool. But you mentioned something online that this is mainly also setting up some of the sort of subtext for where people were supposed to be getting hints about what Regenesis was going to be. Like there's a scene where everybody puts on a Magneto helmet,
Hmm.
including Cyclops, who looks straight into the camera, and it's like, okay, well, are we supposed to surmise that Cyclops is on a path towards Magneto-y
Yeah.
future? I don't
Well,
know how
and
much of this was thought
this
out.
at this time, especially post Schism, there was a big thing that okay, I guess Xavier is now Wolverine and Magneto is now Cyclops. That's just the roles they are filling. And while there's a lot more nuance to both characters than that, and I appreciate that about those books, there's times here where Greg Pak is making that comparison a little too overt.
Yeah. Because the central moral crisis here of whether Cyclops is going to save this world or not, or abandon it, it's sort of like a villain's choice in a slight way. I also don't think that the conclusion of this story really makes a lot of sense. Some of the 616 characters just kind of like magically appear to help save the day, and I don't know. It's an odd wrap up to a quick
Yeah,
story.
I mean, I'm not as hot on Extreme X-Men Volume 2 as you or a lot of people are, but this is easily the worst part of that whole from Extreme X or from this Astonishing through Extermination, not the one that's about to come out, but the one that has already come out.
Yeah, like I said, I think this would serve as like a nice mini just to get you situated with the characters. But these characters, when they team up, it really becomes fun and starts to gel in the Extreme X-Men series. So where would you rank Exalted on our grand list of 129 X stories?
So, the first story that's popping to mind is Exiles 1 and 2, which we have at number 82 right now, which is our
Mm-hmm.
highest Exiles story.
Yeah, the other is Jeff Parker's Exiles 1 to 5. We currently have that at
Yeah.
93.
Uh, and I don't know if it's better or worse than those two issues. I think it I think it does more things that I enjoy than those two issues, but it's not as tight. Like Mike McCone's artwork in this is very forgettable. The plot is a little odd and out there, but it introduces a lot of characters I like. So, well, two. It introduces two characters I
Yeah,
like.
yeah, and again, I like this because it introduced me to some characters that I wanted to learn more about. But do I want to revisit this arc? Not as much. So I'm looking closer to the lower ranked Exiles, the Jeff Parker Exiles that we had ranked previously. I think it belongs, a little farther down the list, around there
Let's
in the
see. Right
90s.
around that, we have Amazing X-Men 13 Charm School, which this is worse than that. Uh, that bar issue of
Hmm.
Wolverine, which I think is that the bar issue is probably better. You know, I think this is probably a bit better for me at least than Uncanny X-Men 284 to 286 Into the Void, where they do a what's it called, Judgment War, but faster.
But
Mhm.
with predators, right? All right. So is it better or worse than Silver Age X-Men number
I think
one?
here's where they're comparable is that they both introduce and do a lot of setup, but they aren't the best parts.
Hmm.
They're a slow beginning, but one
Right.
of these slow beginnings has
Okay.
Magneto and Colossus, or not Colossus, and Cyclops and Jean Grey, and one of these has General Logan, who's cool, but is by definition derivative.
Yeah. So it's our new 97.
I think that's a good place for it. This can be our new 97
Excellent.
Astonishing X-Men Exalted, which is spelled with an E. Guys, X-Men writers, spell stuff with an X when
I
possible.
had the same thought. At least a capital X. Like, throw in that capital X there.
Yeah, at least Extermination is doing
That's
that.
right. Yeah, it's an honest to God thing. All right, so we've gone to an alternate world here in this first arc. So where are we going next? Because I believe we're going to continue to sort of cross through the time stream in the
We
second
are.
arc.
We're gonna go with some capers, some cross time capers.
Oh, so we're
But no,
doing
not that one.
Excalibur? No.
No, no, we're not. We're actually doing the recent arc of X-Men Blue Cross Time Capers. That's X-Men Blue 16 through 20. It's written by Cullen Bunn, with art on the first issue by Thony Silas and on the other ones by RB Silva.
Mm-hmm.
This is an interesting set of things. The 05, the original 5 X-Men, figure out that the time stream is all messed up and they have to go through time to try and figure out what happened. So they go to a version of the 2099 universe. They go to a version of the Generation X timelines. I say timelines. That was just the time. And they go to a version of the Silver Age where they're from. And they realize that, do you know who's been mucking around in the time stream?
I think I've mentioned this on the podcast when we talked to Colin Bunn, but when X-Men Blue 1 came out and he had the coming attractions at the last page and it featured the Future Brotherhood, I smiled from ear to ear. And really the best part, and there are a couple things here that really shine, but the best part here is the way in which, just conceptually, I don't know if it's executed to perfection, but the concept is that the Future Brotherhood have gone back and replaced the Silver Age X-Men and are starting to like really wreak havoc. And I think that is a brilliant, brilliant idea, especially after Dennis Hopeless set up what I thought was a pretty difficult thing at the end of All New X-Men, which was that, you know, the X-Men have traveled back and seen that they're already there. How do you explain that? And the fact that Bunn chooses this as a way to do that, I love it. I just think conceptually it's so smart.
Yeah, it's a good pitch. It's a lot of fun to mess around with, and for me, it's a lot of fun because the stuff that gets revisited, the three big things being 2099, Generation X, and the Future Brotherhood, are three things that I very much like. Like Generation X, mwah, one of my favorite continuous runs, and one that doesn't get talked about enough. Because here's the thing about Generation X, it goes through like one bad spot with Larry Hama writing, and then it's really good for like the entire rest of it until like right at the very end when it does some interesting things before they execute it. This isn't about Generation X. And then 2099 is underrated. It plays with a lot of concepts that other artists and writers would later be praised for bringing to the X-Men. Now, they bring those concepts much better than they were originally introduced in like 2099, but it still is interesting enough that I want to revisit it.
Yeah, and he brings the entire team into the storyline. You know, their timeline has been messed up because of the Future Brotherhood too. So whether we're dealing with the original 2099, something that's
We are absolutely not.
Yeah.
Because I got mad about that when I was reading, because I'm the only person who's gonna give a damn about 2099 continuity. I was reading this and I said, Cullen, I know you have all of these issues bound.
Yeah.
You know this is not how this. Oh, right.
Yep.
That was a hint.
Yeah.
That was a hint that something is wrong.
Yeah, he definitely, you know, loves, and this was something that definitely got out of our conversation with him, is that, you know, he loves bringing back these things that he personally loves as a reader. And you can really feel that adoration as part of the storytelling here. You know, especially when all three of those things converge, because the conclusion of the story involves the Gen X and the 2099 characters joining the 05 and kicking some Future Brotherhood butt. And it's great. You know, RB Silva is an artist who I've always considered, you know, he's been doing X-Men since I think really the beginning of X-Men Gold.
A little bit
And
before that, a little bit, but yeah.
yeah, and clearly somebody who like has a great sense of layouts, is kind of doing a Stuart Immonen
He's
style.
inspired by him, yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like this arc, he definitely you see some evolution in his style, and there are some really really great things going on here that I like a lot in his
No,
artwork.
this is the arc that really sold him on me. Like,
Hmm.
or sold me on him, I guess. I've been a fan of his stuff, but not thinking that he was a top tier guy. I mean, honestly thinking, okay, he's a Stuart Immonen clone, and that's fine. Like, if you're gonna steal from the best. But this arc, he really steps up his game and develops a bit of his own style. As far as art, what I don't think works as well is issue 16 with a Thony Silas doing kind of fill-in.
Yeah.
He's got a really weird look where it's very long, angular characters, and I don't think that necessarily fits the tone of X-Men Blue, which is anchored by guys like RB Silva and Jorge Molina, who have a lot kind of lighter. I don't want to say cartooning, but a more bubbly kind of look to all their characters. If you're going with very basic shapes,
Hmm.
he's a lot taller and
Yeah.
pointier.
Versus, yeah,
Yes,
lots
that's what
sharper.
people normally say.
And it's not as, yeah, and not nearly as detailed as what Silva is doing, in his page work. So, um, you know, I love the idea of bringing back the future brotherhood. And I think so far we've been talking about the idea of some of these things, whether it all gels, I
Oh,
think is
that's
maybe
fair.
up for
That's fair because
debate. Um,
this is a bit of a choppy
you know what I
story.
mean?
It goes, okay, there's a problem in the present. We got to go time machine it. Okay, there's a problem in 2099. We get a tiny bit of information. We're going to go time machine it. Same in Generation X. Same in the Silver Age. And then they get the big, climactic showdown in issue 5 where everyone fights. That's it. It's fun to
Mm-hmm.
experience these things. Uh, it may not be as tightly plotted as I would like. I think reading that originally as it was coming out, it worked a little bit better than it could have been otherwise because you're not getting 5 months of this. You're getting, what, 2 months and some change of just boom, boom, boom with that bi-weekly schedule that Blue's running on.
Yeah, I think you bring up an excellent point. Like this moves quickly. I'm kind of glad that it moves quickly. I don't want it to get dragged out over a year's worth of continuity. It hits its punchline, relatively quickly, so that we figure out what's going on, and then it gets wrapped up really quickly as well. I don't feel like it, lingers any more than it has to, and you know, I, I think there's a lot to be said for putting these components together in a fun story that advances the O5's timeline, because we are nearing what we're being told is going to be the ultimate resolution, with the extermination miniseries. So I feel like this is about as good a setup for that as you can get.
Yeah, one other thing that I like about the setup in this is you
Hmm.
can tell how Cullen Bunn was saying on the interview we had with him a couple weeks back. He likes long form plotting, and you can see what he's doing with Magneto in this story. You get
Yeah.
specific glimpses of things that have become explicit in the most recent arc about how he's fighting with this duality nature of him and how he views the evil side of himself through the lens of the most evil stuff he experienced. You get some of that throughout his entire Blue run, but
Hmm.
coming back and seeing the seeds he planted, I have a lot more respect for that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. And Blue was a title that and with Gold is the same way. I lapse in and out of it. And when I go back and I read some of these arcs, I'm like, oh, you know what? This is grown. This book is definitely doing more than I remember it doing when I, maybe missed a couple of issues.
Yeah.
So I like this arc a lot. Where would you rank it on our list?
Well, it's funny that we're ranking both of these. Have ranked both of these recent stories on our list because X-Men Gold Negative Zone War was running
Hmm.
concurrently with it. It's
That's true.
that's 16 through 20 of X-Men Gold.
Hmm.
I think this is better than Negative Zone War.
I do too.
which is at
I think it has a
78.
lot more fun going on in it. In fact, I'm looking just above that, and I can see some parallels with some of the silly fun that you have with like X-Men versus Agents of Atlas, where there's some beautiful art, some really cool large spreads of just all these characters going at it. Um, I don't know. I'm looking somewhere in that general universe there.
Yeah, I don't think this is better than that Web of Spider-Man annual where Warlock becomes a Godzilla, which is at number 69
No.
on our list
Yeah,
right
I
now.
wasn't going to go that high, but I think I could be convinced to plug it above the Extraordinary X-Men IVX tie-in.
Hmm.
That's the Storm standalone story, which is moving, but I think the art is better in this. And I really like a lot of the fun continuity stuff that he's playing around with here.
Yeah, I can live with that because right above that is the stuff around Uncanny X-Men 275, which has just become an anchor point on this list.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see Cross Time Capers being the new number 71 on our list.
Cool.
Cool, 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 cool,
All
cool.
right. Now this last one, I feel a little guilty about because I think I was the one that recommended this, right? To go along with these.
Yeah, this one's on you, buddy. Uh, here's the thing about the story we're about to talk about. Here's the thing about the stories we're about to talk about.
There are some multiple things we're going to talk about.
Adam, do you know in the intelligence community, do you know what they call it when you have an unauthorized covert action squad? They say you got a wildcat.
I'm going to guess in the real world they might not call it a wildcat, but in this book they do.
This is X-Men Wildcats or Wildcats X-Men, depending on if you're Image Comics or Marvel Comics. This was
That's
a
cool.
4-issue series, uh, kind of unrelated things. Uh, it's actually split pretty interestingly because they
Mm-hmm.
split it between the Golden Age, which is essentially a pre X-Men story, so it's a World War II story. The Silver Age, which is a Silver Age story. The Modern Age, which is a Bronze Age story, and the Dark Age, which is a future story.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to be very honest. I ain't read a dang bit of Wildcats. I know Grifter's a thing. That's all I got. That's all I got about Wildcats. I know that they were Jim Lee's X-Men ripoff when he went to Image, just like everyone else had an X-Men ripoff.
I'm going to say this. Obviously, I'm out of a time when the Image stuff was blowing up, and you really had no choice if you were a comics fan but to be excited about this stuff that was coming out. And strangely enough, the like rabid energy that goes along with some of these titles, I think some of it holds up. The first arc of Wildcats is very weird. It involves Dan Quayle, actual Dan Quayle, getting possessed by an alien,
A Damonite?
who a Damonite who wants to take over the world. It I think it oddly does hold up, as does like the earliest Savage Dragon. And some of the other things we talked about, the Max in our Wolverine episode recently. So it is interesting to me to see the need to pull these two universes together here, and really it's diminishing returns though. Unfortunately, when I recommended this, I said that we should just do the Golden Age, but I think we ended up getting copies of the trade paperback, which had all of it, and we just sort of bit the bullet and said, you know what, we might as well look at
Well,
all four
well,
chapters of
here's how it
this.
really happened. Here's how it really happened. Adam goes back and rereads this because he remembers it. Zach has never read this in his life and reads the Golden Age and puts something on Twitter about it. And then someone posts, yeah, but how do you feel about that time that Grifter made out with Jean Grey? And I said, excuse me? I guess I'm reading all of these now
I guess we're reading all of them.
because this is happening. Let's run down, if you would. Let's go through all 4 of the stories just very briefly. Hit the creative teams and just the 5-second pitch. So
Sure.
how about you start
The
with
Golden Age.
Golden Age?
Yeah, the Golden Age is Scott Lobdell writes the first two of these stories. The art on the first issue is by Travis Charest, who was working for Jim Lee's Homage Studios at the time. Um, it's a beautiful, quick kind of like you mentioned, it's a World War II Wolverine story. Instead of Captain Marvel or Captain America by his side, he's got not Voodoo, he's got Zealot, and they're hunting down this ancient scroll. Right, Nazis obsessed with mysticism, whatever. In the Silver Age, Scott Lobdell is back, and we've got sort of like Heroes Reborn era Jim Lee and Scott Williams. And you want to describe this because it does involve, the grifter Jean Grey makeout.
Okay, so essentially, Jean Grey gets very sad that Scott Summers won't admit that he loves her, and she leaves the team for a hot second, ends up running into Grifter, who is working for S.H.I.E.L.D. against his will, and they make out for a second, and she says, wait, no, I got a boyfriend, kind of, sort of. He won't really say it. Let's not talk about that part. And then they go fight a combination of the Brood and the Damonites, who have infected each other. And then Mr. Sinister's also there. This is where Madeline Pryor comes from, by the way. We all know this, right? Like, in continuity, Jean Grey got knocked out in her fight against the Damonite Brood with Grifter, and then Mr. Sinister was like, and I'll take your DNA. I will use this later. So, because of this, there's a straight connective tissue between Wildcats and Image Comics and Cable, which is
it's interesting.
That's a retcon that is sticking in continuity for me. It happened. It's not Apocrypha. You cannot take this away from me.
So the Modern Age has a story by James Robinson, and then early Adam Hughes doing the artwork there. This one's probably the most straight up like team up, because you get the entire classic X-Men lineup teaming up with the original Image Wildcats lineup. And it's basically a story about them battling the occult forces of the Damonites. But there's all of these wink, like, hey, you're my analog. And hey, you you have claws like Wolverine, but you're not Wolverine. That kind of thing.
Yeah. Here's the thing. This is easily the worst story of the bunch. I would say it's for.
Oh, really? I would not say this is the worst of the bunch.
Maybe worst is the wrong word. This is the least interesting story of the bunch. It's the one I would not ever want to go back to. Like the Golden Age is beautiful. Travis Charest does a very good job making a very pretty comic. The Silver Age, it's got that Jim Lee stuff, and it's got some bonkers continuity that I'm very into. And then the Dark Age.
Oh boy.
Can you explain what happens?
I can't at all. It's written by, of all people, Warren Ellis. It's penciled by Matt Broom and inked by Sean Parsons. And it is sort of like a Days of Future Past that involves future X-Men and a host of Wildstorm characters that are not just the Wildcats team. And boy, it does not make any sense whatsoever. I have no idea what's going on in the story. And a lot of pages, I have no idea even who the characters are.
Oh, no. So imagine this. You actually know who the Wildcats are.
I thought I did.
I have no idea who half these characters are, because they're also dressed ridiculously. Can we please talk about what Wolverine wears?
Please share with us the majesty of Wolverine's upper half here.
So he's not wearing a shirt, but he is wearing pants that go up to his pectorals, and then also nipple guards. Now, it has been posited that he has sensitive nipples and he does not want them to chafe. And I can't agree with that, because he's not wearing a shirt. He's just wearing nipple guards and a choker.
Oh boy.
Man.
It is something to behold. The artwork on these pages is really, I find it difficult to look at. And there's, these continual cameos of these characters who, I really just don't have a grasp of what it is that I'm supposed to be getting out of this story.
No.
Um,
And I think they kind of blow up everything at the end to erase this timeline. Like, they commit suicide to end everything, which seems like a weird plan. Like, it's got
it's kind of like how Colossus cured the legacy virus.
also doesn't make sense, but that's fine. But
Exactly.
there's some weird, it's Warren Ellis, transhumanism, just him spewing that out onto the page without it actually making any dang sense.
Nope.
But it's interesting. It's not good.
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing will be of interest to you if you grew up in a time when you followed Jim Lee from his X-Men run over to Wildcats and maybe stuck it out through, the creation of the Wildstorm universe. But if you don't know what's going on with the non-X-Men characters, you're going to be plenty confused. And, you know, the artwork even here is just all over the place. Um, like you might think that like, oh, having Jim Lee and Scott Williams do one of these issues would be like a surefire hit, but this is like this era of Jim Lee that kind of feels like he's second generation Jim
Yeah.
Lee. Like it doesn't feel like as true to even to the quality of work that he's producing now, or that he was back on Uncanny. So it's a real mixed bag here.
Yeah, it's like, look, if you're interested, go read it. It's weird.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
Uh
Yeah, we just can't promise that you're going to like get anything out of this because it's something that is, if you're going to just find one of these books, definitely check out the Golden Age. Travis Charest draws beautifully. If you like just seeing like a Wolverine World War II story, there you go. You got a really nicely, beautifully drawn one, and it's really well done. The rest of it, I could leave it immediately and not revisit it ever.
yeah, so where on our beautiful long list are we thinking about dropping this group of very mixed stories?
Mm. Well, if it was just the Golden Age, I might go a little bit higher. But I gotta say, like as a whole, this thing is a bit of a mess. So I'm looking pretty low. Um, I'm tempted to. I'm kind of like glancing immediately around like X-Men Mangaverse.
Let's see, where is Mangaverse?
That's at 120. I don't know how low you want to go
So
here.
I think the Travis Charest stuff makes it better.
Oh, sure.
It's
It's a weird balance,
about
right?
all of it together is about as bad as that Spider-Man team up #1, which we have at 114.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
I think Judgment War is better at 113. I
Okay.
don't. So that's my ceiling. Mangaverse is
Is this better than IVX?
no, because IVX has 2 good issues and a few okay ones. Where like the best issue of this is probably worse than IVX 0 and 1.
Is it better than Poptopia?
I mean, I don't understand what's going on in the last issue about as much as I don't understand anything in Poptopia.
Well, here's an interesting comparison. Heroes for Hope is at 119, and we've always talked about that as sort of like a really odd, cultural moment of, combining art and writing powers. And this has a similar vibe to it. If
It
you think
really
about it.
does. And actually looking at this, I think I would suggest putting it as our new number 120, right above Mangaverse and right below Heroes for Hope, because Heroes for Hope gave money to charity.
There you go. Oh, I like that.
See, we're good people. We recognize that
That's
charity's
good.
okay.
Oh, that was
So,
nice.
yeah, I think that can make WildC.A.T.s X-Men our new number 120.
Okay. So that's 3 stories. We are, after a year of the show, we are up to 132. And I thought we would take this opportunity earlier today. I put it out to Twitter and asked if anybody had any questions for this anniversary episode. So, Zach, are you okay with just sort of rapid fire going through some Twitter questions?
Bring them on, man.
All right. Here's our first question, and this comes from Near Ravel, who I believe is originally responsible for recommending Phoenix Legacy of
Yes.
Fire. Um, so he asks, as the guy who suggested the second worst X-Men story on your list, my question is, what is the second X-Men comic you remember reading?
Ooh.
That's a tricky one. Do you remember your second X-Men
I
comic?
talked about this on the show, and I don't remember which order I read them in, but I can assume because I got two of them at the same time. And I
Okay.
think the one I read first was Pizza Hut X-Men 3, which makes sense because it has like a fold
Nice.
out cover, and obviously I'd want to read that first. But the other comic I got was actually classic, not classic X-Men. It's oh shoot, how did they title it? X-Men: The Early Years, #4. It was a reprint of X-Men
Ah.
#4. So it's the introduction of the Brotherhood.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, as far as Silver Age X-Men stories go, that's a good jumping on point. It's where the
Yeah,
X-Men really
absolutely.
do first start to feel like the X-Men. So yeah, how
Mm-hmm.
about you, Adam?
I remember specifically that as a kid, I would get these. I think it was the J.C. Penney catalog. They would send samplers through their catalog for Christmas. I remember getting them year after year. So I think I distinctly remember getting the issue before Life Death, which was UXM 145. I think that was my first one, and then I also remember reading Classic X-Men 44. Which is a great reprint that is that John Byrne summary issue, which hopefully will rank at some point. All right, second question. This comes from our good friend Genetic Ghost.
Hi, Charlie.
I know Zach said recently a year ago he couldn't care if he'd seen Shatterstar die in Deadpool 2. Has doing the podcast given you a better appreciation for all the weird fan bases, pockets of love for X characters and their stories?
For me, I think I had already gotten that since I had been doing the website for about 2.5 years before the podcast started. But I definitely understand the experience. What I think's been more interesting for me personally is not the characters that stand out to people, but the stories that connect to people. Like this episode right now. Someone gave us money to talk about Astonishing X-Men Exalted. Guys, I read that story a couple years back and I have not thought about it since. Like I went back and reread it for this episode, but it wasn't a story that connected to me. But for Andrew Layton, it was a touchstone for him. It's something that he remembers. And I know I've got the weird
Mhm.
ones that I remember on here too. So that's what it's given me appreciation for. It's that stories that you may completely discount and not even give a second thought, maybe someone else's favorite. So it's very interesting. How about you, Adam?
I think my answer would be exactly the same. I mean, I just want to add that through getting involved with this show, I feel like I've gotten deeper into the larger community of fans. And it is amazing to me. Like, everybody loves a character, everybody loves a story, and everybody has their own touchstone. So it's been fun to learn about all of that. Okay. At Magical Matt 42 wants to ask us, what is the romantic story of how you met and was there moonlight?
I don't think there was moonlight, but this is how I recall it because we will have different takes on this. I was screwing around on Tumblr because I used to use that a lot because that's where my site was. And somehow I came across Bish and Jubes. It had to be like the fifth or sixth page. Like this is early. No, it had to be earlier than that because I was reading it a little bit before I did this, and I reached out to Adam. I'd never met him before and said, "Hey man, super like your comic. I run an X Men website. You want me to rehost it there?" And he, for some reason, said, "Sure." And then we just kind of stayed connected through that and through X-Men Twitter. And then I think at a certain point I had thrown out a pitch for this show essentially. And Adam, I don't know how serious he was, but said, "Oh, I'd love to do that." And then I didn't talk about it for 3 months. And then
Yeah.
I was about to graduate grad school, and I was like, "Hey, Adam, you mentioned this offhand a while back. Are you serious?"
And I was because I definitely wanted to start doing a show. So that pretty much nailed it. I think that was a good answer. All right, this next question I think is directed at me. We know that Zach's favorite quote unquote worst X-Man is
Fair.
Maggot, but Adam, who is yours? This comes to us from at Mojo's Work. Um, I gotta say, I think after doing the show, I didn't even know about these characters, but I feel like I'm pretty obsessed with Jeff Johns Morlocks.
They're pretty good.
So we just had the Gifted season 2 trailer come out, and I'm pretty sure I saw the Postman there, and maybe that's just my internal bias. It could be completely
They,
somebody else, but I swear to God, if he's in season 2, I'm gonna flip because I just think
here's
that's
the
so
thing
cool.
about Jeff Johns Morlocks. Do you know how many characters from that 4 issue whatever have shown up in X-Men media? I can think of
Yeah,
like I think like 3 of them at least. Angel Dust was definitely there. Shoot, what's his name with the head? And I'm so mad. Shatter is there,
Shatter.
and I think there's one more that has shown up in the Gifted already. Which would be I can't find a list of them, but trust me.
Yeah, they're clearly fans, so I don't think it would surprise us to see that
Oh,
character show
Traitor,
up.
Traitor.
All right,
Yeah,
yeah,
he's the
there
truck
you go.
driver in Gifted, who everyone just
Mhm.
assumes is a truck driver from Gifted.
But he's not,
Yeah.
or not originally. All right, friend of the show, Luke Hare at Coltreg on Twitter asks, and I'll direct this. This is your area of expertise, Zach. Hey guys, which X-Men eat vape pens like a normal person would eat a sausage or a hot dog sandwich?
Oh, Warlock. Next question. He can absorb them and turn them into life glow. Duh.
All right.
Who else would eat vape pens, Luke?
All right, this one's a little bit more difficult, and I actually thought about this a little bit beforehand, so maybe I'll get started while you come up with your answer here. But at Kid Phoenix asked, what would be your dream X-Men team, written, drawn, colored by who? And I gave this some thought before we came on the air, and I actually have 3 different answers. So I have my never gonna happen ever answer, which is I would love to see a monthly with Walt Simonson writing and Art Adams drawing every issue. Now I know that's never going to happen, but I'm just going to say it because I think that would be amazing. Um, I think another more realistic scenario, which I would love to see just to see what the heck would happen, even if it's not my personal like favorites, I would love to see John Hickman with Russell Dauterman and Matt Wilson on colors just to see what it would look like and what kind of a story they would tell. I don't even know if I would like it. I'm just kind of curious. Personally, though, I'm more interested in smaller scale stories. So I want them to continue working with writers like Matt Rosenberg and Leah Williams, and people like Adam Gorham, going back to classic artists like Chris Bacalo, and just keep using these folks for great minis, anthology style titles. I'm pretty pumped about X-Men Black, so that's the kind of stuff I want to see. Zach, do you have a dream creative X team?
I don't know if it's a dream team because the way I kind of view it is that I am not what's it called? Yeah, a professional comic book boy. So I don't really know the best way to do it, but there's a couple things real quick that pop into mind that I think would be interesting, not necessarily like fantastic. One of them would be having Gerard Way write it because
Mm.
I think Gerard Way does some very interesting work, even though he's very slow and has his own emo band to do. And then there is a artist who's mostly worked for Boom actually, but his name's Daniel Bayliss. He did
Ooh.
he did a book that I really liked called Translucid with Claudio Sanchez and Chandra Eckert from the band Coheed and Cambria, and being the wife of the lead singer of Coheed and Cambria and kind of like an unofficial member of the band. And I think that they are just great. That book is great, and I think Daniel Bayliss would do a very good job. Kind of getting a. I'm really stealing from Doom Patrol here. I think he has kind of that same feel where it's definitely a comic book, but it has a lot of surreal elements to it. I think that would be a good story in the vein of Morrison. I think another one that would be real interesting, and this is oddly enough another current Boom team, is Kyle Higgins and Hendry Paraseda. They are currently doing Mighty Morphin Power Rangers for Boom. And I don't know if you guys have read that book, but it's shockingly good.
I've only seen some of the artwork. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, here's Prasetta is he is off. I think they're doing a big storyline called Shattered Grid, which is the dream of every Power Ranger, which is a good dream. Having them, just all come together, and I think that's going to be the end of their two run on this book. Kyle Higgins has done, Nightwing, Batman Beyond, a bunch of other stuff. I think they'd both be a very interesting team because they can get that teen dynamic feel while still having some really exciting action and high concepts. And then one last one that I'm going to pitch, and I'm pitching all these outside of the current Marvel roster for a very good reason, and that reason is because these are dream teams. I think Steve Orlando and ACO doing an X-Men book would just be dope because Steve Orlando has been writing some really, really good stuff over at DC for the last little bit. And ACO's art, we got one issue of him on Astonishing X-Men, and just absolutely
it was
gorgeous.
amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Go check that issue out.
Yeah, he did a Nick Fury series with James Robinson, I think a year or so back, and it sold nothing. It sold absolutely nothing.
That was a shame. It was gorgeous.
Yeah, the story's also nothing. The story is set dressing so that ACO can draw pretty things. Yeah, but they are very pretty. So yeah, those are my picks.
Those are very good. All right. We're kind of running out of time, so I'm gonna just do maybe like one or two more of these. All right, you get Jordan White calls you up. This is from Matt Berkenziak. Calls you up. You can greenlight your own X miniseries. What do you want to do?
I want to do Maggot. I don't really have a Maggot story, but I'm sure I'd come up with one. Like if I'm given the option, I'm not gonna not do it. It's not even probably the best X-Men story, but here's the weird thing about me. I honestly don't have a lot of fanfic stories. No, wait, I've got one. And it involves it's the grand pitch of this is the secret history of Ruby Quartz.
Ooh.
Which would involve whichever Summers family is available at the time to go into space and have to deal with a about to be resurrected Vulcan who is about to come back through the tear in the universe that was created when he died in War of Kings. And then it would also involve Slipstream and Lifeguard and Adam X and a bunch of Shi'ar people, and there'd be a big fight, and Ruby Summers would get pulled through this cut in the universe, and so would a bunch of other alternate universe people. And eventually the whole high concept is that they would have to sacrifice it by charging Ruby Summers with a ton of energy to unexplode the giant rift in the universe, and then her body would be sent spiraling through time and space and throughout all universes, and then her body would be Ruby Quartz.
You kind of went from 0 to 100 there, Zach.
Yeah.
I went from I don't have anything to wow, that was a great pitch.
I forgot about that one. That entire pitch came from two things. One, I thought, the general and kind of generic pitch of what about all the Summers people coming together? And then I thought, what if I made a pun about Ruby Quartz, because I can't figure out where it comes from, and there's not a good answer in universe except for it's in the ground, but that's not actually what's in the ground.
I love it. That's good. If you guys have been following me for any length of time, either on Tumblr or Twitter, you guys know that I have this obsession with an idea called Psyops X, which is an all psychic team of X-Men. Basically, the pitch is that Rachel Summers recruits Psylocke, the Stepford Cuckoos, Quentin Quire, and I also have a secondary mutation lined up for Artie, so that they can go and get. This takes place in the gap of time before Secret Wars, so it's about them retrieving the Phoenix Egg for Cyclops. So that's something that I've had bouncing around for a lot. So you want to call me up, give me the green light, I'll do that one.
Here's the thing about that pitch, and I'm just going to be very honest. I did outline that once when I was very bored.
You did, and you did a great job of it. I enjoyed your take on that story, which was really cool. All right. There were a lot of great questions, guys, but we have to get to the last part of our show. So I'm going to skip to Matt Sibley's question because he will provide a good transition here. That question was, which story are you most... Oh, is that right? Yeah. Which story are you most looking forward to debating, ranking? I don't think that was the actual question.
That wasn't, but the answer is Supernova's next question.
Okay. So, sorry, the actual question was, if you could each change the placement of one entry on your list, what would it be, where to, and why? And this is something we've been talking about for a while, is the idea of taking a moment and just taking your breath and saying, all right, well, do either of us want to, kind of advocate for something to move around on the list?
Yeah, we talked about just reflecting on a couple of stories because the way these lists work, they kind of get away from you.
Mm-hmm.
And then somehow you have something placed at a certain point and you're like, I don't know if I can do that anymore. So,
All right.
go through. We each picked two. And we're
Mm-hmm.
going to talk about re-ranking them. And I think we'll start with some of the middler ones. So one that I had on this list was a story that we ranked pretty early in the podcast called X Factor 207 to 213 Happenings in Vegas, which is this whole thing about Rain and Richter being pregnant, but Rain lying about it being Richter's kid. And then there's this whole thing in Vegas with Hela, goddess of hell, and Pip the troll, who's horrible. And it's at number 82 right now. And I think there have been stories that we have ranked since that I actually like better than it.
Yeah.
Well,
I think it's ranked a little too high.
Yeah, what I'd say, and here's the rules that we set up for ourselves. We can only move it plus or minus 10 spots. So the lowest this could go is as our new number 92. It's 82 right now. Highest it could go is the new 72. Pretty straightforward. But Adam, what are you thinking about this with some distance? What do you think about this story?
Well, I'm looking at the stories that are in between that. Currently at 92, we have A Day Like Any Other, which is the Kitty Pryde gives a tour of the school. And we have, all right, so I'll just go down the list. Exiles 1 and 2, Fatal Attractions, X-Men Volume 1, 12 and 13, which is the Juggernaut story, Ultimate Spider-Man Jump the Shark, X-Statics, Die Another Day, Spidey and the X-Men 1 and 2, Brood Trouble in the Big Easy, Glob Loves, Man Kills, and then Wolverine Cocaine.
Here's the thing. I think this is defo better than defo worse than Brood Trouble in the Big Easy, which is an X-Men go on location and team up with people story.
I even think I like the cocaine story.
I do too.
To be honest, I'm fully comfortable moving this down to 92.
That is exactly what we're going to do. We are going to take this, what was 82, shall now be 92.
I think that's more than fair. Because, we recontextualize these things all the time. All right. What did you want to do next? Did you want to do your other pick, or did you want me to go?
Let's go with your other pick. Or your first pick, which was currently at 115.
I'm going to go with... Yeah, I have really held this opinion for a long time, but, I've kind of just been gently not talking about it, but there's nothing we can do, we don't have this option often. And I got to say, in thinking about how I wanted to reorder things on this list, I didn't actually want to move around a lot. I like the way that the list is shaped up, and I don't have a lot of complaints about it. However, I would like to stand up a little bit for the New Mutant Summer Special. The more I think about the risks that Brett Blevins takes in this particular story and the visual complexity of what he's doing, I know that Nascenti is not everybody's cup of tea, and that, you know, the story is definitely heavy-handed, but I think it stands alone as something that I would like to revisit more than some of the other things that we have above it. And so I know that we can only move it up to 105, but I'm curious to hear how far up you might be willing to go, because we have above it the poaching story, which we did from Savage Wolverine, the Death of Colossus, Extreme X-Men Expose, Deadly Genesis, No More Humans, the X-Men Volume 2, 10, and 11, which is the long shot story, the Ultimate X-Men Sinister arc, Stairs, the X-Force Shatterstar and Adam X versus Arcade arc, Judgment War, and Spider-Man Team Up #1. I'm going to be 100% honest. I would rather read the summer special and look at it more than anything I just said.
Here's my line. And I think this is because the summer special is just so dang incomprehensible. It's pretty. It don't make any sense.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that, but I just think that it has more merit than some of the things that we have above it. So what would be your ceiling?
This is going to shock the world or the people who've been listening to this podcast for some time. I think Deadly Genesis is better. Okay. I think Deadly Genesis is a better story. I think this is I can see this having more merit than No More Humans, which is just a weird story. It's interesting, but it's weird. So I think I'd have to say Deadly Genesis, even if I don't like the story, tells a story that's a real story and not just a series of political cartoons. Because you do remember that summer special has the weird thing about the kids in the polluted swamp.
Yeah, absolutely. It is weird. It is really weird. But if you're comfortable with it, I think it would make a better 109 than it would be at 115.
I think you cool with that? Cool as a cucumber.
Great. I'm going to move.
So it's 109 now. What's up with that?
That's great.
All right. Let's talk about the one I've got.
Yep. This is number 2 for you. So not on our list, but your second pick is?
My second pick is a story that I feel like, and I say this with all the love in my heart, that we got bullied into putting on the list the size we did, which is X-Men Collector's Edition 1-4, the Pizza Hut X-Men stories, which I don't think are bad, and I have more respect for them than I previously had. They are some of the earliest comics I've read, as I told you guys earlier, but I got some stories on this list that I like better. Like say,
I'm with you.
Executioner Song is better than this. Actually, right below that is X-Force 19-24, Assault on Greymalkin, which is the start of X-Force being good.
I love that. That's a great arc.
I think that's better.
Messiah War is better, I think.
So the thing is Excalibur Mojo Mayhem, which is, I like that. I think we can put it above Mojo Mayhem and have it as our 43 on the list, if that works with you. Collector, go read those Pizza Hut X-Men's, but maybe Chris Sims loves them more than me, and that's okay. That's okay. He's writing X-Men, or he wrote X-Men comic books and I didn't, so maybe he knows more than me, but it's my damn podcast. He has his own. It's our damn podcast. Excuse me, Adam. Fair. I'm sorry. I get possessive sometimes.
We got wrapped up in the Chris Sims fever on that episode, and the Pizza Hut went a little bit to our heads. We'd all had a little too much Pepsi.
Wait, I'm sorry. You don't get Mountain Dew when you go to Pizza of the Hut?
Well, if they've got the fountain out, I'm mixing all of it. You know,
you're going with the suicide?
Yeah, you gotta take your life into your hands and get as much sugar as you can.
Oh my gosh! What's the
all right? So Pizza Hut is all right. So another one that I think is too high, um, is something that I think I argued for going up a little bit higher than it probably should, and I want to bring it down, because given what's under it now, I just don't think that it holds up. So I have a little bit of buyer's remorse on this, and that is X-Men 1 to 3 Mutant Genesis.
Okay, here's the thing about Mutant Genesis. It's interesting. It's important. It's not bad. But I think its importance gets conflated with the fact that it's such a big story.
Yes. So I know where I want to move this, and I'm kind of curious if you're on board for
I'll
this.
listen.
Because below it, we have some really, really great stuff. Wounded Wolf, the Brood Saga. Look, I said it right, everybody. Life Death 2, Life Death 1, the first 3 issues of Generation X 1 to Generation X, Wolverine and the X-Men 17, that weird dupe issue, the first X-Statix run, and the Inferno New Mutants.
Which, by the way, guys, that's in the top 25. We gave Inferno New Mutants a very good rep. If we're just going to call back the previous episodes.
Yeah, that's because it's fantastic. I want to slot Mutant Genesis above X Club. It would make it our new 22.
Can I say something, Adam? That's exactly where I was going to put it. Because
all right,
that the first 3 issues of Generation X are stronger, and I like the art better, but I also like Chris Bachalo a lot more than the average person. I think that Dupe one-shot's real good. I think that first X-Statix arc is real good, and I think Inferno New Mutants tells legitimately a more important and better X-Men story. And while I personally love X Club, I get it.
Yeah. All right. I think those are some smart changes, and I still think that the list really does hold up after a year. I'm pretty impressed by, revisiting it and saying, you know what, a lot of this just makes sense.
In fact, what I'd like is people listening to this, when this episode goes up on Twitter, maybe drop a line on the whole episode thing, telling if you've got a story that you think is too high or too low on this list. Let us know. We're not going to do anything with that information, just to be clear. I might comment on it, and I may be snarky. I know I probably will, because I'm a jerk sometimes, and I'm sorry, guys. I have opinions, and I'm trying to be nicer. But yeah, let us know.
Wow. All right. This was a good, kind of giant size episode. The way we put this together, this worked out.
It did. It's been a crazy year, and legitimately, this couldn't happen without everyone who supports it. So let's go down the list. First and foremost, the people on Patreon. There's been a ton of you throughout this whole time that have been supporting this show by, just like Andrew Layton, going over to patreon.com/XavierFiles. And yes, I know this sounds like a pitch, but I'm trying to get the pitch part and the thank you part kind of combined so I don't repeat the same information. Just deal with it. I'm sincere in both things. But Andrew tossed in a paltry sum of $2, got this episode written around him, and so have so many other supporters. I'm trying to think legitimately when the last time we had an episode that wasn't driven by Patreon
it's been a while.
Supporters.
Yeah.
I'm going through all of the tabs on my giant Excel working document right now. Episode 20 was the one. So it must have been the one where Kelly Thompson. Episode 26, where we took Kelly Thompson's requests.
Yeah.
But even then, that was sandwiched between Patreon. It might have been back to no, it was the Christmas episode. The Christmas episode was the last time we did a non-Patreon request, and that was back at like 21 was the last time we just had to make an episode up. Wow. So I say that just to say your guys' support has been absolutely mind-blowing. Not that I think either of us need the money or anything like that. The show would run without it. But the fact that you guys are willing to toss a couple dollars this way to support what you like and what you've enjoyed in the stuff that we spend time doing, it means a lot. Sincerely, thank you. And everyone who doesn't support, this is not a guilt trip. but thank you so much. I am a numbers geek, and I've been watching the podcast stats like a hawk constantly. And there has been a huge number of people who have jumped on in the last couple of months. That thank you guys so much for checking it out. I know you've been going through and catching up on all the other episodes because I saw those numbers on those old episodes shoot up too. And then also for the people who have been here from the beginning, you definitely got through some rough podcasting. Me and Adam just getting it sorted out. But thank you so much for making it this far. This has been one of the coolest things I've been able to do in my time doing all of this stupid X-Men stuff. So thanks, guys. Oh, and one last thank you. Adam.
Hello.
Adam,
I didn't know if you were done.
I thought I was. I gave a dramatic pause and then I waited. But Adam, thank you for doing this show with me. It's been super cool to get to know you. And yeah, it's been fun. Here's to more.
Yeah, and I just want to echo that. Thank you to everybody who's listening. And Zach, thanks for inviting me on this. I had been joking around with, a friend of mine last summer about he was looking to get into podcasting, and so was I. This came along at just the perfect time. I'm so glad that the show is succeeding the way it is, and that it's continuing on. And it's just really fun. So thanks to everybody who's listening. Thanks to anybody who's reading my webcomic, Bish and Jubes. And, maybe the further adventures of the Battle of Atom crew continue.
Yeah, it's been great. Next week, I can tell you we've got some stuff going on. We haven't nailed it down yet. We're actually recording these a few weeks in the future. So we might have a guest, or we might be talking about the Murder Grandpas. Who knows?
The Murder Grandpas might be our guests.
The Murder Grandpas. But not. I can tell you. Seriously, let's hope not. But in the next of episodes that we have planned out, I can tell you we've got at least 2 really exciting guests that I'm so thrilled to share with you guys. We've got some AVX stuff. We've got some stuff with Chamber. We've got an X-Men story from the Silver Age and the Golden Age, and not the Golden Age. We don't have that. The one story that we could count. But we got a lot of fun stuff. Like, get excited. I'm looking at the next 10 episodes that we have planned out right now, and they all look like bangers, dudes. This is going to be good.
Yeah. And if you have ideas, let us know.
Yeah. So that's been fun. Thanks for dealing with an extra long podcast episode. Hopefully it was enjoyable for you. But until next time, this has been Battle of the Atom. We hope you survived the experience.
Get it!